Hello everyone, nice to meet you. I am Alex and today I want to take you to a trip to the Amsa-dong Neolithic village. Are you coming with me? Good. One problem with propagation or promotion of Korean history is that it focuses too much on Joseon dynasty and completely ignores every other era. While it's true that the Joseon is the most well-documented dynasty, thanks to what? Yes, the annals of the Joseon dynasty. I don't think that this fact justifies that we just ignore everything else and try to focus on Joseon alone. This is why today we are going to go back to the Neolithic times. Now, I know that for most of you, this is probably the most boring topic we can choose from history, Neolithic. Essentially, there are no outstanding buildings, no beautiful clothes, no cool weapons, great battles, and that. But, still, the Neolithic is one of the most important periods in every nation's history. Why? Because this is the time when the roots of each culture started to appear, and the roots of culture itself appeared. So the first Neolithic objects in the Amsa area saw the light of day when a great flood in 1925 unearthed some pottery pieces. However, we need to understand that this time was the worst time for this to happen. It was the Japanese colonial period. So neither the Japanese colonial rulers nor the Korean nationalist historians cared too much about Neolithic period. That's why this village, this settlement, was ignored until much later. Regular excavations and regular works on unearthing Amsa village started in 1971, when a full-scale research kicked off in this place in order to find out how did people live here in the Neolithic period. So as I said, the researchers and the archaeologists found a village which was inhabited for about 7,000 to 8,000 years ago in that spot. Before we talk about the village itself, one important thing about Neolith is that this is a time when people started to settle down and live in villages. Unlike in the Paleolithic period, when people in hordes moved from place to place searching for better food sources and better shelter, in the Neolithic period, we already found out how to cultivate our own crops. In other words, we invented the basic forms of farming. Yes. This allowed people to settle down in a place which they preferred as their living spot. This also meant that they were forced to invent their own living places or houses. So a typical type of house of this period in history is the pit house. The pit house looks very simple and primitive, but to be honest, it's a very cleverly designed place to live in. Because it's partially on the ground level, it keeps constant temperature. In other words, it's relatively cool in the summer and it keeps warm in winter. In the middle of the pit house, there was a fireplace surrounded by stones. You see, these stones that were surrounding the campfire or a bonfire were heated by the fire and kept the heat in that area much better. Moreover, once we enter the Bronze Age and the houses become much bigger, This small area was not enough to heat the house. So people started to build stone flues, basically a stone corridor that was leading from the fireplace to other spots in the house. In a way, we can say that this system was the grandpa of the ondol heating system. On the floor of the house, you can see some odd-looking holes. Why would they be there? Well, this was where the pottery was stored. You see, the typical pottery that the people living in the Amsa village used was nothing like the pottery you know and see today. It was more like this. It has a weird shape, right? Why would anyone make a pottery that doesn't have a bottom so it cannot stand on the ground? You see, Neolithic villages were usually near rivers or other water sources. Now, the ground near the shore is quite soft, which allows for easy digging as well. This allowed people not only to make pit houses, but influence the shape of this pottery as well. The V-shaped pottery is stored in a small hole in the ground, which keeps it more stable. Yeah? Later, when people started to expand to areas where the soil was harder, the flat-shaped potteries start to appear. Pottery was used to store food. What kind of food our ancestors ate? You see, acorn was a staple food for Neolithic people. But you have seen an acorn, right? It's a small and quite hard thingy which you cannot just chew around. So how did our ancestors eat this thing? Well, of course, they needed to break it. This is why they used the grinding stones. The grinding stone is a very simple tool. It is to break the acorn and basically grind it to powder, after which it's already in a form that everyone can safely eat it. As they live near water, it's only obvious that they would catch these fish that lived in the same river that is nearby their village. The earliest ones were fishing by spears. Yeah, you just see the fish and catch it. But in the Neolithic, people started to develop methods which could help them catch more fish in shorter time. They achieved it by using fishing nets. If you go to the Amsa-dong village museum, you will see two objects that show us that the people who lived in this area interacted and traded, sort of, with people from other areas. So what two things you think I'm talking about? First, we found some pieces of obsidian. Obsidian is, in other words, volcanic glass. It's a black material which is slightly similar to glass and it's also quite fragile. However, it's very, very sharp. In other words, this material was extremely important and high-tech in a Neolithic village. Another thing is one that I call the oldest decorative material in Korean history, pronto. What is that? Actually, let me just tell you, it's jade. It's a stone which never really changes its color and quality. As such, later, even in cultures like China or Korea, it was a symbol of strength and health and good luck as well. So, why are we talking about all these objects found in Amsa village? Culture can be understood as a reaction of people to the environment they live in. You see, if we live in more harsh environment, our culture might be more geared towards survival. If we live in an environment which has a lot of water, our culture might go in a way which helps us survive and move through water and watery surfaces. That is what I mean by saying culture can be seen as a reaction. So if we really want to understand specific cultures, we need to be aware of what environments they grew out of, as well as what challenges and what kind of benefits this area, this geographical area gave them. The objects in Amsa-dong kind of show us some of the ways how our ancestors reacted to the nature around them. In a way, I would say these objects are a kind of ancient Instagram, small bits and pieces through which we can construct and understand the everyday life of our Neolithic ancestors. I would like to finish our tour with a small hope that however boring and featureless and just plain these Neolithic objects might seem to you, you will be able to see the story behind them. And with this idea, I would like to conclude our today's trip. I hope you will have a very great day and see you next time. Bye bye!